Welcome back. You should have completed procedures 1 through 3 and topic 3 on your own. Before we move on, I wanted to draw your attention to the orange box in procedure number 3. Learners must double tap or double click the most frequently used letters in the English alphabet before they move on. These letters are given to you in the guide as A, E, and T. They will use this information in the next activity, and they must tap these letters to unlock the tablet screen in the future. Procedure 4 is an unplugged activity, using frequency analysis to decipher the Nazi message. This activity can be tricky for kids. We actually think this is the hardest activity in the entire curriculum. So we have step-by-step instructions for you to follow here. For this activity, you will need material 431, which you can find in the CryptoComics Google Drive. You will need to print 1 copy of the handout for each student. I'm going to show you how to do the activity by showing you what students will do with the material, but I will follow the script in the guide. I highly suggest that you have the guide in a place where you can follow along. After you pass out the handout, we suggest you tell the students, the kids in the comic book have received a secret message, but this time they don't know the key. Brute force will take them too long. Can we decipher it using the frequency analysis? Let's try. The first step is to guide learners to count the missing letters in the tally chart, which are D, H, K, and W. We suggest you say, let's look at the ciphertext. We need to count the frequency of letters using a tally chart. Let's start with D. We found it helpful for students when the teacher would model how to count the letters. So I would project this paper up on the board or just read the letters aloud and make a mark on each letter D and a corresponding tally in the tally chart. The total number of Ds in the ciphertext are 12. After you are done with D, we suggest you say, now that we did letter D in your groups, find the frequency for H, K, and W. We give you the answer to these in the guide as H is 13, K is 9, and W is 16. The second step is to ask students, what are the 3 letters with the highest frequencies? The guide gives you the answer, and they are W at 16, H at 13, and D at 12. The third step is to help guide students to understand how we can match the letters in the ciphertext with the highest frequency with letters in the English alphabet and see if we can guess the cipher key. In the material, it asks, can you find the letter with the highest frequency? And the answer here is capital W. In the script, it says, W is the letter with the highest frequency. How can we figure out the plain text? Well, we compare it with the most used letters in English. What are the 3 letters with the highest frequency in English? If you don't remember, you can find them on your app. Students should have already double tapped on these letters, which are A, E, and T. You can prompt students to write these 3 letters in these spaces, E, T, and A. In the guide, we now ask you to say, is it E? On your Caesar wheel, align ciphertext capital W with plain text E. Now decipher the first word, WKLV. Does it make sense? What students will do is align the capital W with lowercase e using their Caesar wheel. In this digital Caesar wheel, here's the capital W, and I need to align it with lowercase e. When I align capital W with lowercase e, I can decipher the first word. WKLV to ESTD. Does it make sense? When we do this, we find the plain text does not make sense. So we need to try another letter. On the paper, I can guide students to write this out. If I align W with plain text E, I can decipher the word into E, S, T, D. This does not make sense, so we need to try another letter. Let's try T. On the Caesar wheel, you can align ciphertext W with plain text T. Now we can decipher the first word, WKLV. Does it make sense? When we align capital W with plain text T and decipher the first word, we get THIS. Yes, it makes sense. I can guide students to write this down on their paper as capital W aligned with plain text T is equal to plain text THIS. Step 4 has you help students look for patterns in the ciphertext. It prompts you to say, now let's see if we can find out letter patterns that use W in the ciphertext. Find the letters after W in the ciphertext. What letter is used most frequently after W? You can either do this with your students and see what they come up with, or guide them through it. When we look at W, I see that K comes after W pretty frequently. On your Caesar wheel, what plain text is lined up with capital K? I see that it's the letter H. So in the secret message, we see WK a lot. WK stands for TH. What common three-letter word do you know that starts with TH? And students can hopefully guess the. Walking students through these steps is modeling pattern recognition. Now when students look at the ciphertext, they can look for patterns and see if they can identify three-letter words or single letters. They can quickly solve a ciphertext they might not already know. So for this example, I see TH, and I can guess this last letter is E. I can quickly decipher this word without having to use my Caesar wheel. Step 6 in the guide is to decipher the entire message. You know your learners best. They may want to decipher the message themselves. Other learners may want to move on, and they may want you to read the message. The plain text message is written in the guide. The last part of this activity is a whole class discussion where we ask you to help students compare the brute force and frequency analysis method. We want students to realize that if they used brute force for this activity, they could have had to try 26 possible keys before they got the right letter. Instead, we used frequency analysis by comparing the most frequently used letters in the ciphertext with the frequently used letters in the alphabet, and we looked for patterns. With this method, we only needed to try 2 keys before we got the correct answer. In the next procedure, number 5, the app activity Decipher the Song, students will practice frequency analysis by deciphering refrains of songs. Refrains have repeated words, so it's a nice activity to help students find patterns. This activity uses sound, so please tell your learners to turn up the volume on their device before they start. Please unlock the screen and complete procedure 5. This is the end of this video.